Welcome to the Earn and Learn Career Development Series. This module on interviewing strategies is being presented by the Career Services and Internships Office at the University of Southern Indiana. The topics we will discuss today are defining what an interview is, appropriate interview topics, how to prepare, virtual and in-person interviews, types of interview questions, and what to do after the interview. As job seekers, we can often put the pressure of interviewing on ourselves. The spotlight can feel bright and can cause us to be nervous, anxious, and excited. All of those are normal feelings for an interview. While the interview is an opportunity for the employer to ask you questions about your skills, education, and experience, we also need to remember another important piece. The interview provides us, as the job seeker, the same opportunity to assess the employer, the position, and if it meets our needs, interests, goals, and work values. This is why we encourage job seekers to view the interviewing process as an open conversation between two mutually interested parties. It's important to understand what an employer is looking for in an interview. Ultimately, they want to know how you feel the need of the position. What do you or can you bring of value to the team? You can provide this information by discussing your developed skill set, relevant experience or achievements, strengths, weaknesses, and educational background. It's also possible that employers will ask you questions about the company and why you are interested in working there. Remember that during the interview, it's important that only content related to your professional history is included, not personal information. Any information related to your education, work experience, volunteering, sports, or extracurricular activities can provide employers with that information. Something that we make an effort to inform students on and job seekers on are specific topics that are not supposed to be included in interviews. These are topics that employers are not allowed to ask questions about in interviews, thanks to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. According to that commission, these types of questions centered on this type of content are illegal and are not to be considered hiring criteria. Sometimes employers may not directly ask you information related to the last slide, but they may ask a question to the effect of, have you experienced any illnesses that made you take time off of work? Or when did you graduate high school? These are indirect questions that can still seek out the same information mentioned on the previous slide. We mention this because while it's not a common occurrence, there is a possibility it could happen. Also, when we are asked questions and are unfamiliar with the professional interview, as job seekers, we might feel that any and all information is a part of the process. Employers want to know the information about your background that would help you complete the tasks of the position and show how you would contribute as a member of their team. If the employer asks inappropriate questions, then you have options. These questions might catch you off guard, and it's important for you to know that it's not a requirement that you answer them. There are a few things you could say if approached with this situation. You can respond vaguely by saying your personal life won't interfere with your professional responsibilities. You can ask the interviewer how the question is relevant to the position, or you can try to change the subject. In preparation for the interview, there are a few things we recommend beforehand. Make sure you research the company so that you are able to answer questions like, what do you know about us? Or why would you like to work here? You can read information on their website about the company, their mission statement, values, or more. Make sure that you practice in mock interviews and practice your conversational skills. Talking about ourselves in a manner relevant to the position or relevant to a job can be different. We are bragging about ourselves and our accomplishments in a professional context, and that might be unfamiliar to us. It's also good practice to answer questions that we don't know ahead of time to learn how we can best think on our feet. You'll also want to prepare questions for the interview, which we will discuss in detail in a few slides. Make sure that you plan your outfit and make sure that it is professional. If needed, you can call the HR of the company to ask about the attire for the office, but you'll want to make sure you dress a step above that for the interview. Make sure to familiarize yourself with the logistics. If it's in person, do you know where you're going and where to park? And if it's on the phone or virtual, do you know if you have the quiet space needed and do you have the equipment? In choosing your outfit, make sure you choose professional and appropriate clothing. Interview attire will differ from the internal dress code for a company. For example, slacks and a polo might be appropriate for day to day wear, but for an interview, you're wanting to make an impression. For that, you can follow the general tips you see on the screen. Business professional suits are often appropriate, or slacks with a nice blouse and a blazer. Have clean, closed toed shoes, wear minimal cologne or perfume, avoid gum, candy, or bringing in drinks to the interview like Starbucks or smoking beforehand, and use proper grooming techniques. Brush your hair, trim your facial hair, clean and trim your fingernails. For virtual interviews, have a stable and reliable device. Ensure the day before that the system or software needed are updated. Choose an appropriate setting and background, usually a blank wall with neutral color and minimal background objects, and avoid bright windows behind you. That will make you appear darker on the screen and make it difficult for the interviewer to see you. If you need lighting, have a light in front of you or to the side. If you live with anyone, inform them that you have an interview so they don't disrupt you. Or secure any pets so that a cat doesn't walk across your screen while online with the employer. Check your camera angle, and we recommend stacking a laptop on something to bring the camera angle to eye level. Maintain good posture, speak up and enunciate since you're online, and do a test run with your equipment beforehand if needed. For in person interviews, make sure you arrive early, at least 10 to 15 minutes. This will give you time to collect yourself and take a few breaths before the interview. Remember that if you are in the space, you can be seen. So we have on here the 3 steps on, 3 steps off rule. Before you walk into the building, and not until you leave the building, make sure that you are in your professional character. Not to say that you have to pretend to be professional, but just remember that there will be people around, and sometimes employers will ask people in the common space or employees in the common space how a person was acting before the interview. Also, make sure that you turn off your cell phone. Even a phone on vibrate can be distracting in a quieter space. Bring a pad folio with with a pen and paper and copies of your resume in case anyone in the room requests one. Shake hands upon entering the room, make eye contact, and introduce yourself to everyone. Maintain good posture and body language. Be enthusiastic about your information and engage in the conversation. If you want to make any notes or write down a question that comes to mind during the interview, use your pen and paper to do so. Demonstrate self confidence and brag on your abilities. Believe in the experience that you have. Showing the employer through your engagement and answers is vital to helping convince the employer that you are a great fit for the company. Make sure to avoid appearing bored or tired, using too many or like statements, and exaggerating or lying about our experience. There are many common interview questions, but mostly they will fall within these 3 categories: situational, behavioral, and resume based. Situational questions want to evaluate your analytical and your planning abilities. They want to know how you would approach a situation, and they are often hypothetical in nature, such as what would you do if you disagreed with your supervisor on a project? Behavioral questions or behavior based questions, that's an attempt at predicting future behavior based on your past experience. In these questions, they will be asking for specific examples about how you approached a situation or how you used a skill. So they will start with something like, tell me about a time when blank. You can provide specific examples using the STAR method, which we'll discuss in a few slides. It's very important here that you rely on your past experience and provide specific examples when answering these questions. Resume based questions want you to provide more context on your resume content. So it may involve a question like, can you elaborate on your responsibilities as an IT intern? Overall, you'll want to make sure that you communicate your fit for the position and the employer on your skills, experience, and your competency to perform the roles of the position. I mentioned earlier that we'll want to make sure that we have questions prepared for the interviewers. It's very likely at the end of the interview, they will ask, do you have any questions for us? And the answer should always be yes. Employers value and like the engagement when job seekers have questions for them. You can prepare a few beforehand to ensure that you have some, but something in the interview may also spark another question that you can write down in the process. Asking questions can also help the interview be more conversational, so make sure that you put some thought behind them. This shows the employer that you're actively engaged and interested in the position, and you'll want to ask questions that draw a genuine response from the employer. It's important to note that questions that you can ask should revolve around the company, what the interviewer likes about the company or the position, or what would be required of you in that type of position. Questions that we should not ask usually revolve around salary, pay, benefits, and opportunities to advance. A first interview or second interview is not the appropriate place to ask those types of questions. In behavior based questions, as I mentioned in the previous slide, you can use the STAR method to help you formulate your answers. If needed, start thinking about some scenarios where you've used skills in your current or previous experience and start writing some of that information down. An employer is going to want to know more information from you about those things, and saying that your skills are great or amazing won't be enough. They are looking for specific examples of how something you did made a positive impact or outcome. STAR method helps you provide an in depth response by drawing on that background, experience, and knowledge. The S stands for situation. The T is what was the task involved. A is the action that you took, and R, what were the results? These questions can ask about successes, challenges, or even failures and lessons learned. This is a written example of the STAR method and how it can be used to answer behavior based interview questions. In an interview, we won't be able to pause and ask for time to write our answers out in this way. However, before the interview, we can take time to write out some examples of our experience and the skills that we have that are relevant to the employer based on the information that we have in the job description. In that scenario, we can therefore come up with answers to these types of questions that may be helpful to us in the interview. So, the sample question here is, describe a situation where you recently persuaded people to your point of view. The situation was that you were called upon in public speaking class to develop an impromptu presentation. The task involved is that you were asked to convince your peers in class to agree to come in on a Saturday morning. The event is sponsored by the communications department, and you would hear from outside speakers on a panel. The action that you took was that you gathered your thoughts, developed a rationale, and stood to speak in front of the class. You also gave multiple reasons why it would be beneficial to attend the event, such as gaining networking contacts and more knowledge about your career field. The results were that more than half of the class came to the panel discussion, and the professor said it was the best turnout for the event in 3 years. Real time, again, we won't be able to write down our thoughts and make our bullet points. So, this again will be something that you'll have to practice. in being able to think of these answers on the spot in real time. But there is preparation that you can do beforehand. So, taking all of that information on the previous slide, this would be a possible response to that interview question. In my public speaking class, my professor asked me to develop a brief impromptu presentation for an event on Saturday morning. The goal was to convince my peers to attend the employer panel event discussing career opportunities and professionalism in the workplace. This was sponsored by the communications department and would provide students valuable information on professional development. I gathered my thoughts and created a list of reasons why it would be beneficial to attend, including the information gained and networking opportunities. As a result, over half of my class attended the panel presentation. My instructor said it was the best attendance of the event in 3 years, and I believe my persuasive presentation contributed to its success. After the interview, you'll want to ensure you've thanked them for the opportunity to meet with them. If you remain interested in the position, you can reiterate that as you prepare to leave. If possible, try to get the contact information of everyone you've met with. This is important because it's encouraged that job seekers follow up after the interview. Send a thank you email to the interviewers within 24 hours of your meeting with them. If possible, try to recall specific information from your conversation or something that interested you. You can wrap up that thank you email by expressing your eagerness to join their team and that you look forward to hearing from them. It's also possible you can follow up on the position itself. If the employer provides you with a timeline, then follow that. For example, if they say at the end of the interview, some people will be out of town over the next week, we plan on reaching out to candidates in 2 weeks. If you, as the job seeker, then email them 3 days after your interview to ask about the status of the position, the employer may appreciate the eagerness, but will also recall back that they left you with a timeline. So, if they provide that information and let you know what those next steps are, then follow that. If they haven't given you a timeline, then anywhere from 7 to 10 days or even 14 days would be an appropriate time frame to wait before contacting them. Make sure not to reach out too early so that the employer and the search committee has time to meet, discuss the candidates, and make their decisions. As a student at USI, UE, or Ivy Tech, remember that you have access to career centers with resources to help you in your career development. If you would like more information on this topic or others, you can reach out to your respective career centers using the contact information listed here. Thank you for viewing the module on interviewing strategies. Be sure to view the additional modules provided to you to complete the Earn and Learn series.